Welcome to the LandLife podcast with your host, PJ Riley.
Hey guys, welcome to the LandLife podcast. My name is PJ Riley. Guys, before we get started, like, subscribe, leave 5 stars, add a comment too. From what I understand, adding comments helps everything, builds the algorithm, more people will watch. And guys, we need likes, subscribe, stars if we're going to keep getting great guests like Jude Mendonsa. Guys like that are going to kind of build this thing up, and they're going to be able to spread their story, and that way everybody can hear it, benefit from it, and we can all grow together, guys. Jude Mendonsa, he is the owner, founder of Invictus Syndicate. Say that 10 times fast. It's a men's private coaching group. He's got all kinds of businesses, guys, all over the world. He's got a super interesting story too. So Jude, kind of get us started. Like, let us know kind of how you got to this point in life. I mean, you got a ton of stuff to talk about, so I'll let you get started right away.
Oh man. By luck. No, I had, as some who have seen me before, and how PJ right there is kind of saying, got a lot of story and everything. Grew up very much hard knocks, had a dad that was a drug dealer in and out of prison, went through some house raids, things like that. Parents actually had to go on the run from the feds when I was around 11, and they left me here in Montana on my own. So just went through a lot of different things, tried to become Al Capone myself later on in life, ended up getting stabbed a couple of times and realized, that just wasn't who I really wanted to be at that point. So started cleaning up and started looking, what do all the successful people do? What do they have in common? And tried figuring that out. And first thing that popped to my mind was real estate. All rich people in some shape or form, they all have whatever their businesses are, but they all dabble in real estate at some point. So I went and got a job in construction, figured I was going to, change my life around. I needed to do something that was going to create wealth. I knew it had to be in real estate. Didn't know how, didn't have anybody to talk to, no mentors, no coaches, anything like that. But I was like, well, if I learned construction, maybe I could flip my own place someday. So just started from there and just started building myself up, more and more, working better jobs, asking better questions, and starting to circle myself around better people.
Okay. So
sorry,
you were in
got a tight
construction.
voice
That's
today.
kind of where you started. How do you convince yourself though? So you're around all these guys doing construction, the weekends aren't talking about business endeavors and, we're going to fly on our private jet to our island. Right. So That's your everyday life. You grew up, you got stabbed a bunch of times. I mean, you had a rough life growing up. How do you convince yourself? How do you do that mindset switch to go this different direction completely? Right.
Well, so I was always business oriented. So there were some members of my family that were very good entrepreneurs. A great uncle of mine, who sadly I didn't connect myself to. And looking back now, I wish I would have. Him and his brothers owned one of the bigger mechanical boilermaker places in the state of Montana. And then he also owned like 10 trailer parks and a bunch of investment properties. I, however, did not go to him for advice or anything, sadly, but I always saw that. And my dad was very entrepreneurial. It was just, drug oriented, but he did very well, made a ton of money, got to do a lot of things. Exactly. I mean, he still ran it like a business. So that was always there. And obviously I saw the same things. Oh, there's a lot of easy money in drugs. So when I went that route, and it wasn't really drugs that I did a lot in, I actually dealt more in illegal guns, but ran it like a business, tried making money with that. So I was trying to be entrepreneurial. I was just doing it in the wrong way. So after, I got stabbed a couple of times. Some things were going on with some of my friends where, in that community, they start backstabbing each other. And like, there's always looking over your back. Everybody's kind of screwing around. Yep. Oh no, my computer's going to die. I'm sending a text to my business partner right now to bring me my computer charger from the next room. I am so sorry.
Here's what I'll do. I'll pause it. All right.
Right. So, I ended up getting stabbed a couple of times in a really bad fight, watching all my friends and stuff around me, like they're backstabbing each other. They're stealing from each other. around that same period too, my uncle, he was a VP of the Iron Lords motorcycle club. He ended up going to prison. He had just gotten out. He was trying to rebuild a relationship with his kid. Like all this stuff's just going on around me. And I remember I was working at the Texas Roadhouse at the time. And I was walking to work and I went into a McDonald's that day. And there was this guy who looked a lot like my uncle, long hair, like old biker looking dude, had to been pushing 50, learning how to do the fry machine from some 15-year-old kid. And nothing against that. You know, he was working, he was doing something. So that's awesome. But I remember seeing that and I was like, nope, I'm done. That's not for me, you know, because I had the choice. I was going to go to prison someday. I was going to die someday, or I was going to wind up like that guy.
Yeah.
I didn't want to do it. So I moved out of the house I was living in. I moved under an overpass in town. It was the middle of Montana winter. And like I sobered up, just slept out there the whole time and just started again. Yeah. Just changing my thinking. Like I had to do something different. You know, I had to just start making those changes.
Yeah. I know a lot of people are like, you know, how do I get started? Do I, you know, I have a job, I have a day job. Well, Jude was getting stabbed. He lived underneath an overpass and he still managed to become successful. So at that point though, where do we go? Do we jump right into buying a house and flipping it?
Yeah, right.
What did it look like from, because that's a huge step
right
from where you were to where you're now.
Well, and as you probably know as well, you know, with proper training and stuff, I could have done that, but I didn't have that. You know, I didn't know about rich dad, poor dad. You know, I didn't understand what wholesaling was. Like those were terms that were gone. You know, all I understood was rich people dealt with real estate. Go become a contractor, learn to bang some nails. One day I could flip a place, you know, or the ultimate carpenter's dream, buy a duplex, live in one side, rent out the other side, you know, like, yep. So those were just my goals, started working that way. Ended up not staying in construction as long as I wanted to. Ended up getting a really good opportunity to go sell cars at this car lot. A buddy of mine was making about 15 grand a month at. So went there. I made one really good check, and then 2008 happened. Oh, they weren't giving anybody loans anymore. We sold no cars.
Yeah. It's crazy how many people start in car sales.
Right.
Like,
right.
I met so many people that start in car sales, and man, what a tough business to be in, even in a good economy.
Yeah.
You know, you got to be out there hustling 12, 14 hours a day. You know, you don't go home at 5 o'clock because people come into the dealership after work to go look for cars.
Right.
All right. So go ahead.
Car sales, for me personally, car sales is a horrible business because of that right there. Like you're married to it 6 days a week, easily 6 days a week and 12+ hour days. I mean, you make a lot of money. Car sales was not for me. I'm not a car salesman.
So after car sales, where do we go?
Right. So I ended up getting a job at the hospital. I became a phlebotomist and worked there for a few years. One day I was down in the ER and I was talking with a buddy down there, and there was a couple doctors near, and he was reading the paper. Medical marijuana had just started coming around in Montana. He's like, "Hey, Jude, you know about that. You should go do that." And I was like, haha, yeah, I'll go start a marijuana business. One of the doctors pulled me aside later. He pulled me into a room. No one was around. He was like, "Jude, you need to go do that." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, you need to go start a marijuana business." I'm like, "Well, why don't you do it?" Like, he's like, "I can't. I'm a doctor." He's like, "I'm old. I built this career. Like, I'm not leaving it, but this is your opportunity. You need to go do that." Yeah. And it was like, dang. So I got in touch with a couple buddies, sold my car. Sold my car, took the car money. We went and bought some weight, went and picked up a couple of clients, friends that we used to deal to back in the day. And we were like, "Hey, we're going to start dealing to you again, but we're going to do it legally now. You're going to get a card with our name on it." So we did that. And, we just started hustling and built the business. We took that business from an initial around $7,000 investment to breaking 1.5 million our first year to breaking over 3 million in our second year.
Wow. Okay. So let's unpack that story a little bit, because that's super interesting. So you took a skill that you had as a young man and brought it into the real world, right? And I guess it was always in the real world, but in the business world, a legitimate business world, we'll say. Now, a lot of people would have stopped there because they would have been like, "Well, I don't know how to buy a warehouse. How do I get like the storefront? Where do I go there?" a lot of people would have used that as an excuse to stop and to give up. Why didn't you give up? Why did you, what made you keep going forward at that point? Did you know somebody who owned a warehouse? How'd you move forward from there?
So, no, again, like I didn't have any connections or anything. I actually reached out to a few friends like, hey, I'm looking for retail space. One of my friends knew a guy who had retail space and was willing to let a marijuana place in. So we got that. My dad, who had come back from on the run a couple years before, got in trouble again, went on the run again. He actually had a small warehouse out in the middle of nowhere. So I ended up renting that from him. So I would sneak him money while he was out on the road, to live for rent. And then we were using this little warehouse. And we started with that. We, at the beginning, because we were just all learning. My grower, he was just learning. Like, we were just kids, man. We were just all figuring it out. So we had to rely on buying from a lot of other farms and stuff, especially with the amount of money we were pushing. There was just no way to keep up. We were pushing almost instantly 40 pounds a month. Like we went through it quick. So, but we ended up scaling from there. One of the smartest things that we did with the business, and also dumbest, which I'll get into a little after this, but smart, was we wanted to become the biggest and best. Like, this was our long-term thing. So we kept reinvesting. We ended up opening 2 other stores. We opened up a couple other warehouses. And then just before we shut down in 2012, we had actually signed the lease on 2 more store locations and 2 more warehouses. So we just kept dumping money back into the business, back into it, trying to explode it up.
Yeah. Okay. So branding is super important, especially in a new industry like that. You want to stick out to be not just the best guy, but the most, especially in an industry like that. You want to be reliable, trustworthy. You're on the up and up, as opposed to everybody else. You're the right guy to go to for medical marijuana or whatever Montana was allowing at the time. How do you stick out? How does your brand stick out versus everybody else?
Right. So there's a couple of things that we did that other people didn't do. And these are very minor things. Like, no one was doing testing back then. We were doing testing back then to just show, hey, our product had this much THC, blah, blah, blah. My one partner that we had brought on, he was a chef and a legit chef. He had opened up 2 previous restaurants. So he did all of our baking, all of our chemicals and stuff, made all of our oils and everything. So, it was quality, tasty stuff. Like, back in that day when someone made brownies, it always tasted like a little green or something. No, our brownies, our blondies, our Jolly Ranchers, like, they tasted legit. But our biggest things were how we built the business and got clients in. Everybody else, they just opened their stuff, threw up a sign, did an ad, and that was it. We did footwork. So one, all of our clients, we would give them, hey, bring in another client, we'll give you a free 1/8. So we had people word of mouth bringing us people, because people love doing that. We had one guy the entire time, because we kept records of everything. He made like 7 ounces off of us. Like, he loved it, But then we would set up meetings with all the different doctors' offices, the alternative doctors, like the herbalists and things like that. We would go everywhere, and we would tell them about our business and what we did and how we could help patients of theirs that were requesting this. So we did a lot of footwork, where we were going out there and we were becoming known in the community. Then we would take part in like charity events, things like that. We would do food drives. Hey, bring in 10 cans of food, get a free joint, things like that. So we were just doing all this community-based stuff.
Yeah. I think relationships are huge too in business. A lot of people, especially new ones, get so nervous that they're going to lose money that they don't build those relationships. They're like, well, I don't want to lose money to that competitor or to that person who kind of does what I do. So I'm just not going to talk to them. But building relationships is huge. If you're in an industry where you're selling, marijuana, get to know, the business next door, get to know the guys that are really big in marketing in the neighborhood or in the community, build huge relationships. That's going to help your business a ton. One thing I want to ask you is about your team. How many people are on your team? Like how do you hire for a business like that?
Right. So that one was actually really easy to hire for. And it's something we took in to my next business after that, my cell phone stores. But, we found people that we'd worked with before and trusted from the restaurant industry. And the great thing about the restaurant industry is, one, they all love marijuana. 2, they're used to working in super high tense situations without good pay and with getting crapped on because, they're a restaurant worker. Like, no one treats cooks and dishwashers good. So you grab a couple of them that have shown in the restaurant industry they're willing to go the extra mile. You take them into a business like that where you've doubled their pay. They get some benefits, they also get extra goodies because they're in the industry that they like.
Sure.
And the stress level just went down a ton. I mean, we didn't fire one person the 3.5 years we had the business. Everyone we hired stayed on, and we just kept adding people as we went. Like, it was perfect. And I mean, it's never that easy in business. In that one, it was, because I've dealt with other businesses, and it hasn't been that easy again. Yeah. So
what about security though? So like,
right.
I know you always have to have a security, at least here in Denver. In Denver, marijuana has been a very common thing here in Denver for a long, long time. So I noticed there's always security guards. They're always armed. How do you deal with that? I mean, and also, what does the insurance look like for something like that?
Right. So insurance actually wasn't bad. We had crop insurance.
What?
Crop insurance.
Okay.
So we had our typical business insurance, and we had crop insurance. The problem was it was such a new industry. Like, there wasn't actual insurance for that at the time. Yeah. So we had the farmer's crop insurance. So if our crops failed, anything like that, like, that was covered. Wow. And then we had our typical retail insurances, so if someone broke in and stole product, or if someone got hurt on our property, stuff like that. What was your other question?
The insurance and then the security.
The security. Right. So security, it's Montana. We all have guns.
Okay.
So, and we had 24-hour people out at our farms, but yeah, I mean, we all have guns. So. Okay. Just is what it is, and then like in the retail shop, we had a couple break-ins. They'd break through glass, and then we learned, we can replace all our glass with the bulletproof, non-breakthrough glass. Yep. So we did that, and then we'd get videos of guys trying to break in, and man, they'd be hitting it with bricks, and the bricks are bouncing off of it, and they're kicking it and can't get through. So you just learn and you do things. But when they would come into our place, like, we had these big, massive safes we bought. I mean, just massive. You could fit like 6-7 people in them. So we put everything away at night, all the product, all the money and everything. So, and during the daytime, it would have been really hard to rob us because we were so busy. I mean, we had a line out the door for 8 hours a day. Wow. So, but if someone would have came in, again, we had 2 people working the counter, each had guns. One of us, usually me, was in a separate room with a gun. So, I mean, it would have gone bad for someone.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is super interesting stuff though. Like, guys, if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to start a business, just like Jude, but how do I get started? You just get started and you keep rolling. And every time a new problem comes along, you just address it when you get there. Right. That's what it seems like you've done time after time. Every question I've asked you, you've been like, all right, we had a problem and here's what we did. We just fixed it. Right. Another thing too, I want to ask about, what about banking? Now I don't know anything about the banking and marijuana, but I do know there's maybe you're not allowed to put money into a bank or have a bank account with a marijuana business. Like, explain all that to me.
So we skated by somehow. So yeah, almost no banks would touch it. Mm-hmm. One of our bigger banks here, Western Security Bank, and I believe they're owned by Avalanche Bank Corp or something like that. They let us open a bank account. I don't know how, I don't know why, but they did it. No issue at all. Dude, it was so bad. We'd bring in 10 to 20 grand in cash a day there. And it just stunk of marijuana, because we're keeping it in the same safes as the product. The managers bought the girls all Febreze to spray down our money with. So, we'd bring it in, they'd be sitting there spraying it and cleaning it all up as they sent it through the machines and stuff. So I know a lot of other people, though, all had trouble with getting bank accounts. I don't know why, God blessed us. It just worked out, but we got a bank account.
That's awesome.
So it wasn't supposed to happen.
What's that?
I said it wasn't supposed to happen.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit. You got a lot of business knowledge now. You went from the bottom and now you're here. You know what I mean? You started at the bottom and you absolutely, you built it up all yourself, one step after the next. I think a lot of people can learn from that. So you coach people now, right?
Yes.
You do business coaching. Maybe talk about that a little bit and how you can take all this knowledge and you can give it to other people.
Right. Okay. So first off, let me say, I am not your average guru. I'm not the average online coach. Like, I never wanted to coach, but I will flat out say 90% of the guys that are coaching right now are bullshit, excuse the language, and they're doing it because it's easy money. You've got these mindset coaches and these happiness coaches and stuff. And like, you get into their business, let me see your P&L and stuff. Like, they don't understand their books. They don't understand their balance sheet. They don't understand KPIs. Like, they understand the fluff at the top.
Yeah.
I never wanted to be one. I had many people who've wanted to ask me for advice and stuff. And like, I'd give them advice and they never would use it. They would never do it. So it's like, well, I'm not wasting my time like that. Had another gentleman who asked me to coach him. And at this time, I finally had a mentor, Tyler Sheff, a really awesome real estate guy, also a book author. He was on one of the podcasts that I sent you. Phenomenal guy. Recommend people follow Tyler, and he's a no BS guy. Like, he tells you how it is. Yeah. So he was one of my coaches. And I was telling him like, yeah, I had this guy, he wanted me to coach him, but I told him, no, I don't do that, blah, blah, blah. Tyler goes, you know what, Jude? You're the most selfish person I've ever met in my life, and you don't deserve anything you have. Wow. I was like, whoa, what? Where'd this come from? He's like, yeah, you've come from nothing and built yourself up, and you've learned so much. And there's people out there that you could reach that someone like me will never be able to reach and connect with. And you don't want to help them. You don't deserve what you have. And that was like, whoa, like, he's right. He is 100% right. So I spent a couple of years, instead of jumping right into it, I wanted to increase my knowledge and know more and understand how to help people better. So I started hiring bigger and better coaches. I ended up working with Jesse Itzler for a while. I did a lot of work with Pejman Gadimi, who Andy Frisella did stuff with way back in the day, and Tom Bilyeu. Got connected up with Dean Graziosi and Tony Robbins. Like, I mean, I just spent a lot of time increasing my network of influence on me to better myself so I could better help other people. And through doing that, I kind of realized, that I wanted to specifically work with entrepreneurial men, or men that are like looking to go to the next level in their business or their job or anything, but also want to be better husbands, better fathers, better leaders. Because one thing I noticed, like, I went through a really hard time in my marriage where my marriage was doing really bad, and that leaked into my work. And then there've been times where work was going really bad, that leaked into my household also. It's not separate, We're balanced around by everything: our internal mindset, our physical health, our business, and our relationships. And if one of them suffers, they all tend to suffer. So I wanted to develop a program where I worked with men on all of those points, instead of like, oh yeah, I'm the Amazon guy, or, oh, I'm the mindset guy. No, it's more than that. Success takes so much more than that, which you're an Arete just like I am. That's one of the things I like about there, is it's not just this one BS fluff. Like, they're hitting everything. I mean, 75 hard. Look at what he's doing. Hey, push your mental, push your physical health, push your creativity, push your learning. You're doing all these things instead of just one little thing. You're trying to create the whole city off of a great foundation. So,
yeah. No, I can absolutely tell you actually give a shit about your clients, and you give a shit about people. That's such a big deal. Another thing too, which makes you I don't know you other than the story you've told me, but I think a great coach has to be qualified. There has to be a qualification process to get there. You can't teach me how to run a business when you've never built a business. Right. You can't teach me how to, get 10% body fat when you don't work out. Right. And so I see a lot of coaches will come in, they start as a coach. Day one, they're a coach.
Yeah.
Because they enjoy helping people. I understand that. I get that. I'm the same way. I want to help people. But until you've done something yourself that you can convey to your clients or your friends or the people you're trying to help, it just doesn't have the weight behind it, kind of like, like yours really does. So let's say I'm day one guy. I'm like, Jude, I just want to learn from you. You're a solid dude. And I listen to your story on the LandLife podcast. And so you got a lot of cool stuff, and I just want to learn. Where do I start? What does day one look like?
Right. Okay. So, well, day one, obviously, I always sit people through an interview too. I vet them before I even work with someone, and usually I'll put them on a project first. Like, what books have you read? They'll tell me, and if it's not one of the ones on my list, or one of the ones that's in the direction they're telling me they want to go, I'll make them read one of them books and get me a report on it first. So they have to do something first to show they really want to do it. Not just give me money. I don't care about the money. And a lot of people, they pay the money and that somewhat pulls them in, but it still doesn't. Like I've had people pay me 20 grand and still just quit, so money's not everything. So I want to see them do some work. I want to see them prove it. And then you can also see where their mind's at and how they analyze something by reading one of those books and giving a report on it. So you can start seeing some of their inner workings and how to help them from there. So I've changed things up now. What I have now is a 12-week course where I bring a group of about 30 guys in. We run them through this course. Okay. And it's usually like 5 modules each week for a total of 12 weeks. And then from there, we're in a private Facebook group together, kind of like Arete, just networking, working with each other and everything like that. And then, but during the 12-week course, I'll give them a couple private calls. Again, that's why I also limit it down to just 30 people at the most, because I got a family, I'm not sacrificing my kids for anybody else, but I want to help where I can. Before it was really wild west because I was kind of learning it and stuff. Now we built this module where it's this 12-week course, and we start with the self, we start with the mindset, we start with the health, we start with nutrition, we start with their learning, what they're reading, things like that, what they're studying. We have them make commitments, less Netflix, more going out in the sun, doing things, whatever. We start working on their circle, let's do an edit of your friends, Are these people at the bar every night? If you have a problem with your wife and you talk to them, they go, oh, she's a bitch, you should leave her. Or do they bring you good advice? We weigh that stuff out, start cutting out that fat, create a good, strong circle, a power of 6. Then we start working through relationship stuff and then business stuff, sales, systems, process, all that. And then we figure out how to balance it all together at the end, where we start teaching them investing for cash flow, whether that be start your own ATM business, buy some real estate, do some crypto leveraging, something like that. So,
wow. So it's like an all-encompassing overall building up men project. And I think that's really important too, because I notice a lot of, and I know it gets talked about a lot in groups like Arete and on social media, that guys are kind of not guys anymore. We're being like, it's not cool anymore to, go out and do manly things and be a guy, be there for your wife. It's almost like, nah, don't do that. Go find 10 different girlfriends and live like that. And so I think it's super important to kind of have guys like you that show other men what it's really like to be a man. It's not just money, it's not just business, it's relationships, it's being a good dad, it's working out, it's being mentally fit. But anyway, I think you kind of covered it. I'm just going over it again, but no, dude, that's super important. So Jude, we got to, I told you we want to keep it tight. We want to keep the time pretty tight here. How can people get hold of you if they want to be a part of the coaching or they want any information at all from you?
So right now my website's being rebuilt, as you saw, judemendonsa.com. People can find me on Facebook, on Instagram at the Barefoot Millionaire. And I'm just always open. So just message me up, friend me, whatever. I talk to everybody.
Awesome. Yeah, you're a cool dude, man. I really enjoyed this. This is a really good conversation. I definitely think it shows people how you can go from the bottom and getting stabbed to being a guy who's so successful, he's helping other men become better men.
On that note, real fast, I'm sorry. That's one thing I've always had in my mindset, going back to some of your earlier questions about, how that's always been in my mindset, knowing that anyone can do anything. You look at a guy like Jack Ma, and I did a lot of business over in China. Jack Ma, richest man in China, CEO of Alibaba. He was so ugly to the Chinese, they wouldn't hire him at KFC. They told him he was too ugly. So they got, totally different hiring standards over there.
Yeah.
And he came from such a small village, couldn't get a job at KFC, became China's richest man, worth billions upon billions of dollars, and there's so many other stories like that. Like, dude, it doesn't matter who you are, what you are. Like, I always tell people with me, like, dude, I'm barefoot most of the time, which is how I got the nickname. Like, I go to bank meetings barefoot and stuff like that. I'm allergic to deodorants. So sadly, I stink. I just do, I do what I can, but none of that has ever held me back. It doesn't matter. Who cares? People just care about your integrity and the amount of work you'll put in.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I think that's super inspiring too, to like anybody who's like, dude, I'm on the fence. I'm 35 years old. I haven't accomplished much in life. My relationships suck. So, maybe I'm not the best looking guy in the world. Hey man, go get it. There's a ton of opportunity out there if you're just willing to work hard for it and just put in the time.
Right.
Make that jump, put in the time, and you'll get there. All right, Jude, I got the big question for you.
All right.
Here's the big question. I've been prepping everybody for it, and you're all ready to go. Okay. We are LandLife. I buy and sell vacant land all over the country. So the question to you is, if you could buy land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
Okay. So originally it was New Zealand or Japan. New Zealand because I'm a huge Lord of the Rings nerd. Japan because I'm also a huge video game and anime nerd, and I love like the hot springs and everything there. As I've gotten older, I've become more of a realist and a conspiratorialist. So I see a lot of stuff happening in the world, and I've also become much more manly and much more primal. So I really want some land in Greenland. Greenland is like the last unexplored place in the world. It's very hard. It's very rough. You got to be tough to get through it. You got to learn to hunt. You got to learn to fish. And I don't know, something intoxicating about that. Maybe it's the fact too, we've had all these Viking shows come out the last few years, and I just want to put on some leather and go hit something with a club. But
yes,
yeah, Greenland.
Grow that goatee out a lot longer, braid it out a little bit. Yeah. All right. Greenland. That's nobody's ever even gotten close to saying Greenland. So that's
right.
That's new. I like that. All right, guys. Jude, thank you. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
No, I believe that's it.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Don't forget, like, subscribe, contact Jude, get coaching. This guy's legit. He's the real deal. Until next time, LandLife.